welcome back to Neko Nation Japan. Today we're staying in the realm of habits. Today we're looking at The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. It's a really interesting book. It kind of breaks down a lot of the habit formation and habit isolation scientifically, which I always like. Um, when we're getting right into this, we're going to go right through the book and discuss any of the other things. All right, The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. So habits are emerging. Your brain basically wants to save energy and effort around every corner. So a habit emerges when it says, okay, we're doing this thing every time. So it looks for a cue, and then it says it immediately links a habit to that cue. And it says, okay, here's this cue. This happens every time. You open the refrigerator, and then immediately you say it with, I want to eat something. So you immediately, your brain says, I'm hungry. And you always have this cue, habit, all kinds of different things end up result from these. Every interaction in your day, your brain tries to do minimal effort as possible, so it's linking all these different cues to different habits and routines. And it basically, our entire day breaks down into habits, cues, and routines. So the basics of any habit and all habits break down to three basic parts. So first, you have the cue for that habit. Whether that be opening the door for the fridge or walking in the door, whatever the cue may be, then you have a specific routine you do after that cue. So whether that's just sitting down on the couch, flipping on the TV, relaxing, whether that's sitting down reading a book and doing some kind of positive habit. And then you have the reward for that habit. So you have your three basic rights, your cue, your routine, and then your reward. All habits are break down into these three fundamental pieces. Obviously, your reward is, I get to eat this salty food, or I get to relax, or some kind of mental stimulation, whatever. Whether the habit or routine is a mental, physical, or emotional habit, all of which link to that cue, routine, and reward. A great way to look at it is all of these habits emerge unconsciously and without our permission. Habits are so powerful because they make a neurological craving that wants this particular reward and is driven by this cue and this routine in order to get this reward. Very powerful stuff that your brain uses in order to get you to do the least amount of energy thing. A lot of the time it's not that great for us, right? But it either has a great reward or a good often cue, and then the routine is worked in there too. So when creating or wanting to change an existing habit, we got to adjust our cues, our routine, and our reward for this habit. If you want to build a new habit of meditation, you already have maybe used that existing habit like we had last time. So if you sit down and drink your coffee in the morning, it gives you that caffeine hit or the sugar hit or whatever it is, that's your reward. And as soon as you get that habit done, you want to link it to another habit. So that's the cue that you do every day for another habit, such as meditation. So after you drink your coffee, you cue that habit. Coffee, cue, meditate, 5 minutes. You could build in that routine. And then what is the reward going to be? A lot of that time is with meditation, it's just a word of mental clarity, kind of a little more relaxed state. And then you're just ready to go on for the day. A really good, strong routine that I think everybody should try out, at least for a month or so. See what happens there. This is a really interesting one. You cannot change an existing bad habit, but you can change either the reward or the cue. Nice, but you could change the cue too. But you use that cue and you change it with a different routine and maybe a different entering a reward, but you still have that same cue, which is really key. You got to figure out exactly what that cue is. Really important is you got to believe in yourself just in general, but you got to believe you can change this habit, maybe change the routine of it, and then a different reward. And not every one of these is going to work for everybody. So you got to figure out what works for you, whether that's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's social contracts where you need to, you're putting your identity, yourself on the line by asking somebody else to keep an eye on you, keep a track of what you're doing. Places to start is finding out your keystone habits. They go much farther into this in the book, but basically just habits you do to get small wins. Now these small wins kind of accumulate up over time and allow for big changes to happen in your life. You want to start accumulating as many little wins as you can as possible, and then boom, something big happens, and it kind of explodes into this really good and powerful habit that you can use to improve your life, your situation that you're currently in. To really succeed, you need a keystone habit to help you do this to get successful. Whether that's getting around like-minded people or individual you want to associate with, maybe mentors or that kind of thing, and get yourself in mood for throughout the entire day. Say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it, and really help with these the little keystone habits that kind of blossom into something big. That's why they always say mentorship is so powerful. It gets you into this little habit of, maybe talking to your mentor about certain things that you would never ever think of dreaming about by yourself. But since they're already in it where you want to be, it could definitely be something to improve upon. Really good points about this. In the heat of the moment, in these heat times of decision, when the pressure is on, having these keystone fundamental habits are really changing your mindset and what it is you're trying to do with your life really helps to shape and decide, okay, when the pressure is on in these difficult times and difficult moments, these keystone habits help to create this culture in this community where you have the specific values that you want to get forth that you may not think of at the time. Says, oh, I really should stop doing this, or I really need to look at things in this certain way. It helps create this and foster this environment that you want to do and you want to step forward in creating. These keystone habits are very important for your everyday existence. The book further goes over this concept of your willpower is limited resource that you want to go throughout the day. So if you use it up in the morning doing something tedious, whether paperwork or something that you really don't like but it needs to get done, you're going to be out of your willpower by the time you get home or when you finish your day, right? So if you don't have these habits already built in, you're not going to have the willpower to say, oh, I shouldn't eat this whole tub of ice cream kind of thing. By the time you get to the end of the day, you won't have the willpower to do what you know you need to do, but you just don't have, you're lacking the willpower to do it at that time. So you really want to build this into habits, and which doesn't require you to have as much willpower. So you could use your willpower on the key decisions and those very important things in your everyday. When you're doing a task that is willpower dependent, if you're doing it for personal reasons, or at least you think you're doing it for personal reasons or pleasure, it requires much less willpower. But if you have a particular job where you have no autonomy, this is what you do, this is what you have to do, then it saps that willpower so much faster. You have no autonomy, so you have no choice. You're not doing it for your own personal pleasure. The boss is telling you this is what you need to do, this is how it's done. Boom. It uses all your willpower up very quickly. Go figure. He really talks about every company should have built-in routines for the everyday that allow their employees to kind of experiment and learn and grow without getting decision fatigue on the everyday processes. So whether that's filing a report, you just do. All right, task done. You don't need to think about it, and that kind of thing. You really want to build your everyday routine things into just everyday routines. So you're building those habits of everything you need to do throughout the day, certain times, So you don't need to think about them anymore. So it allows for that creative and leftover energy to be used in more useful things to develop and grow the business. A really valid point is, in this, he goes over, an organization cannot change by the leader just saying, okay, now we're changing everything. It really needs this concise moment of, if there's a crisis or something that needs to change, but you need to get everybody to agree that a change needs to be made before any kind of habits are changed at all. So everybody has to agree, okay, this is not working the way it is. What can we do to improve it and change it? A little bit in contrast to the last one, they say the buying habits of people will change when they have major life events. such as moving to a new place or having a new baby, all of a sudden you can affect their choices and their habits at that particular point. This becomes valuable information for any company that wants to sell you or change your habits of buying in order to get you to buy their product versus their competition's product. Um, Especially having babies, that kind of thing. Everything changes and shifts in the house. All kinds of stuff change with the habits you're spending and what you do. Everything changes. All right. The last point he goes and makes, habits are constantly being formed in our brains without our knowledge. Now, this isn't a particular excuse, but you need to be somewhat conscious of this and say, okay, what kind of habits am I developing? Whether that's unconsciously or subconsciously. And what can I do to change and better my habits in order to get whatever results I want? And obviously, being clear on what results you want definitely helps this process. With that being said, it is definitely our responsibility to go and change the habits we have and mold them into better habits, what we want to see going forward. With that, thank you very much for listening. I definitely give this book, I would say, a 9 out of 10. It's a great read, a great listen to. Obviously, now I'm doing most of the books, anyways, that are really good and high on the list. I'll do a few that I don't think are very great, but suffice to say, thank you very much for listening in. With that being said, this is Neko Nation Japan. Jeremy signing off. Sayonara.